Ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for us to get started. It's Val time. It really is. Thanks, Rin. Wow, look at all the people that showed up. Oh, jeez! Oh my gosh. All right, this is how it's gonna. This is how it's gonna. Oh my gosh! Why are you doing it for this show? Save your points. All right, hold on. So, hold on. I have to get it out because I'm going to be lurking. Okay, enjoy your lurk, Finch. I know you guys love me. Thank you. I'm going to... Don't make me regret this. Okay? I'm going to refund you all of the points. Why? Because I'd rather you do that tomorrow for the last show. Like, you guys can throw things. You're not my dad. You can't tell us what to do. Kogzo, what are you doing here? You're never here. The last show of the season. But like I said, I'm going to refund you all the points. You can throw things periodically throughout the show, but I highly encourage you guys not to throw all your points at once. If you're gonna do it, throw it tomorrow. Okay? All right. Ready? I'm gonna reject all of this. So let's see. Ah, jeez! I knew that would happen. I knew that would happen. Ma, what are you talking about right here? Oh. Oh, my jeez. That was self-inflicted. Anywho, guys. Yeah, so tomorrow is our... It's not picking up my mouth as much. That's interesting. So tomorrow is the last episode of the VOD of the season. I want to put that out there. And yes, I'm drinking a Dr. Pepper right now. It's the last episode of the season. So this is the second to last. So I highly encourage you guys to join me tomorrow, as well as, you know, sticking with us today, because today's a really good show. It's like really good. Like, you guys have no idea. But tomorrow is the last episode of the VOD for season 1, and then we'll be taking a break, and then we'll be coming back in May. And that is going to be with Sawa Grape Sama, which she streams on YouTube, not on Twitch. So yeah. But anywho, it's good to see everyone show up, everyone be a part of this. Let's see, because I can see who else here. Oh, you're there, you're here, you're here, you're here. Okay, I see you, I see you. I also see you. Don't worry, you're seen as well. I see all of you. So without you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. So just know how wonderful and how special you are. On a side note, guys, since the VOD is ending for season 1, if you have the means, I don't expect it, but if you have the means, just to know, these bits, these emotes, those are bit badges. Those are bit ones. So I encourage you, if you can, because one, it's really funny, but two, the emotes are really fun. I just think the bit emotes are much better than the sub ones, just because the subs go away after after a month if you can't pay it. But these ones are permanent. Hey, no. I almost said that out loud. My Google device behind me would have gone off. Is the cool streamer Vale streaming? Yeah, that's me. So, but anywho, That's all I gotta say, guys. I just think the bits are funny, and I love the bits. So yeah. But anywho, guys, it's time for us to talk about our guest today. In my quest to find guests and learn all that I can about VTubing, I have to go to various sources. I have to find numerous people across different platforms, and I have to try and ultimately parse out who would be a good candidate to be on the show. Because at the end of the day, when I started, I like being able to know what I'm getting myself into and who I can talk to and all of that. But also, I like to know who has a good story to share, because everyone has one, but some people just don't like sharing theirs. That's okay. Now, in my quest to become a VTuber and learn, I have found several people who have good content across different platforms and that teach various things and talk about things. There is, pardon me, there's somebody like Penumbral, which I've talked about. Penumbral was one of the first VTubers who talked a lot about the community that I learned and was, became a source of education where I could learn who's who and who does what. Because of his VTuber profiles that he would do, as well as his YouTube shorts. Kyo is another one that would... Thank you, I will hydrate in a moment. Kyo and False ID are two that talk a lot about the VTuber scene as a whole, and just talk about current and live events, like the big stuff. Our guest for today, I think, does a better job in delivering information that people talk about, but don't talk a little bit more in depth about. And I say that because when it comes to commentary in the VTubing community, people who tend to make content about it aren't necessarily VTubers themselves, like the bigger named people. So it's one of those things where it's like some of the best commentators in sports are those who play the game. Our guest today does content on their channel. They stream, and they also put out commentary videos, which if you haven't seen, I highly recommend, because they are pretty informative in delivering more objective views and writing, which I think tend to be the best way you can deliver information. And we're going to talk about that a little more on the, today. But until then, let's see. There it is. Because I'm getting their channel link so I can copy it and then throw it in there once I actually announce them. But anywho, why don't we actually talk about them? Today, we will be welcoming the commentary VTuber and owner of OtakuBon, a little guy whose love of cuteness is only overshadowed by his crippling inability to stream. A lot of people can relate to that, so don't feel bad. Streaming is hard, guys. It's hard. Is it the hardest thing in the world? No, but it is still hard. When he's not spending his time working on building new connections, he enjoys working on his well-crafted videos, diving into the VTubing space and its culture. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Keniisu, the VTuber, to the show. I added that VTuber part at the very end there. I don't know why. I don't know why. Don't at me. Don't hurt me. Yes, no. The video ninja has to like spawn into existence the person, and so we just kind of have to sit there and yo guys, Kenny's in my chat. Let's do that.
Here I am.
So is the audio, guys, for those in the audience, is the audio coming through fine? I was a little worried.
I hope so.
Hee hee. That doesn't answer my question, Rin. Oh, beautiful. Also, first and foremost, why can't I pin that? Twitch, don't be stupid. I'm gonna pin that. So first and foremost, guys, go sub, go follow our buddy Kenny here, because again, very good content. He primarily does a lot of his stuff on YouTube, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So, but for now, we're going to be getting into our first, in my opinion, our most important question. That is, Kenny, who are you and what is your story?
So I am Kenny or Keniisu, and I've been in the VTuber space for quite some time. Originally getting in through Pigamy clips from the JPs who got translated and such like that. And through my time in the VTuber community, I've done a lot. I've made videos, obviously. I've worked for Idol Corp as a video editor, and I am also the owner of OtakuBon, which does VTuber merch. I would say my story is just mainly I've been trying to build a lot of connections, get to know a lot of people, and just sort of get an understanding of the space on a deeper level. And I think I try to do that with my videos to sort of relay what I learned, I guess.
I mean, that makes sense. There's so much happening in this sphere of the internet that it's hard to find the drive to diversify so much of your content and what you do, because you stream, you make YouTube content, but you
Yeah.
also are having a presence on some place like YouTube or Twitter, but you also own a merch company for content creators,
Yes.
which that in and of itself is something that I hope people understand how difficult that is to own a merch
Yeah.
company. Like,
Yeah, it can be.
so with that, please, can you talk to us a little bit about your merch company for a moment? Because the thing is, I haven't had anybody on the show who's had such a wide scale production such as this.
Yeah, so OtakuBon, I started originally just sort of selling sort of anime shirt designs, but I felt like over time, because I do have my presence in the VTuber community, that I could probably use a lot of my understanding of how e-commerce and manufacturing and sort of things like that
Mm-hmm.
to sort of provide a better avenue for VTubers to set up their merch and just make it a lot more of a seamless process without having to deal with a lot of the hassle that comes with doing it on your own.
I mean, considering and that's something we'll talk about is, um, recently merch companies have been not good.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
And
Yeah.
and when I say not good, because I stopped myself because I was gonna say I was holding back a swear, um, but I'm sure you can imagine what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Uh, and the thing about it is, like, I think the two people I saw that it was affecting was, I think, Shy Lily
Mhm.
and was it Amelie?
I think so, I believe.
And for those that don't know the situation, I don't know it as much. Let's see. So if I remember, essentially these merch companies, this merch company that they were part of that was helping brand, get some of their stuff out, was withholding money.
Right.
Uh, and from that, these content creators were missing out, rightfully so, because they're putting all this work to be like, hey, come, advertise our stuff, we'll give you that cut. That's just how business works. Withdrawing several tens of thousands of dollars in merch revenue, because again, that's something that's very important to not withhold.
Yeah, another issue was a lack of like fulfillment for a lot of the orders, which happens. I know from Prison Project, Emma, I forget their name off the top of my head, but I know they also ran into an issue where their merch company was not fulfilling orders as well.
Uh-huh. And so
And yeah,
yeah, continue.
go on. I was just gonna say that, yeah, and it's like a very prevalent issue that there's a lot of issues with trust with these merch companies, and that's something I try to be. I had a Twitter thread pretty much outlining pretty much the entire process of how OtakuBon works, because I think there's a lot of issues with transparency when it comes to these deals, and I think that's something that needs to definitely change going forward for the indie VTubers when they're trying to work with merch companies.
I think that word you said there, transparency, I think that sums up the entire thing about this issue. Is a lack of transparency on any business front is what leads to not only failure, but also it's a ripple effect of it affects not only your bottom line but the people you work with. Because when I was talking to you last night about things I've strived for, especially in this, what was one of the words I talked about that was like the most important thing?
Transparency.
It's transparency. Because if you're wanting to, because I treat this like a business, that's how I strive to get things taken care of. Transparency, if you're keeping things, people, you're not reliable. And so
Right.
how do you as a business owner, especially in a sphere like this, how do you maintain trust, and how do you build the trust, and how do you maintain it? Because starting from the bottom of this, I imagine people aren't wanting to take that leap unless you're established.
Right. We have worked with a couple of creators that are notable names. Rev says Desu, Malbad, a couple others. And I think one of the things that I try to do is really be clear with the terms when I'm actually negotiating with the creators, and also just being upfront with the public as well about sort of, so it's not like, the news comes out like later that like, oh, you actually, this is why your orders weren't being fulfilled and things like that. I try to be pretty transparent openly with the process. That's why there was a Twitter thread I made, like I said, pretty much just outlining sort of how these deals tend to work, and sort of what a company should strive for when they're trying to make these deals with creators. Because I think, like you said, transparency is one of the big things you need to have when you're doing business dealings, and having that with both the creator and also the people that are being served by you, the customers, is a very important part of actually maintaining your trust in the industry.
Now, keeping that, or having that trust is one thing, and keeping it. But have you ever had any instances where you've sort of lost that trust but gained it back?
I don't think I have yet. No.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, see, Monozuki here thinks your model is nice. Okay.
Thank you.
Sell
the lick
Mono.
emotes.
Let's see, the people who drop by, who come to see the show, they're good people, but sometimes you gotta reel them back a little. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
Now, managing, because looking at your website, there are several things I can see. There's your landing page, which is very well designed. The UI,
thank you.
better than a lot I've seen.
Yeah.
But not only that, I see your shop. I see you guys sell shirts, hoodies, charms. And guys, this isn't sponsored. I'm just saying this because it's part of our guest, and so I'm just bringing it up. I think it's a really cool topic to talk about. So I just want to put that out there. But shirts, hoodies, charms. But those Dakimakuras I see.
Yeah, we had one for sale, but we plan to open more in the future. Yeah.
I see. Now, geez, they keep their relentless. Mono, don't throw the Dr. Pepper. Save it for tomorrow.
He's enjoying his Dr. Peppers.
I'm just gonna keep that on standby. Femboy made Val Dakimakura win. I don't know, man. I don't have any merch. I want to get merch in the future, but that's a discussion for a different time.
Yeah.
So the thing that I want to point out is your work with us section, because there is a creator merch program. They have a creator affiliate program. I'm unfamiliar with this kind of thing. Again, I don't have merch. I have not. That's not something that's been on my radar. Because someone at my size, it wouldn't make much sense, given the scale. So explain to us what this is, and is this common practice in, I guess, the merchandising business? So
what would be common practice? What?
Yeah, so your merch program. So it says creator merch program versus affiliate program.
Right. So the merch program is the exclusive merchandising with the creators directly, but the affiliate would be, say, for example, if you want to promote the anime shirts or anime charms, for example, you'd get like a percentage cut.
So what it sounds like to me is one is almost a partner, and the other is, hey, we've already made it, but we'd like to go through you guys to help reach it out there. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, it's more so okay, so to explain, so the merch program is basically, say a creator wants to start producing merch.
Yes.
So they would go to us and they
Uh-huh.
would offer. We would negotiate the terms of the agreement, but they would create the actual exclusive merchandise through us.
Oh.
The affiliate program is sort of the anime shirts, for example. If you wanted to promote the products but not necessarily create your own, you'd get a percentage cut off promoting the products, for example.
Oh, so it's kind of like a sponsorship.
Yes.
Interesting. And so how many people, like, on average, like, do people lean more towards the that sponsorship style of program versus the actual?
We haven't done a lot of outreach for the sponsorship program just yet. It's kind of a newer thing, but the merch program has been mainly the thing that people have been showing an interest in so far.
Speaking of, I need merch. Where's my Val undergarments and my Val bottoms, if you will? Why? Fair enough. Fair enough, Vega. We'll talk about that later. Do you ship internationally?
Yes, we do.
Interesting. So how does that work? Because all I know is shipping internationally can sometimes be a pain in the butt, given rules, regulations, and customs.
Yeah, you told me. It can be definitely a difficult process.
Uh-huh.
A lot of it is just understanding what countries are more of a hassle than others. There are some countries that we cannot ship to because, like, for example, Finland is really difficult to actually deal with the customs. So I just cannot ship to them. Yeah, Finland. It's surprisingly very difficult. I've run into issues before shipping to Finland. Scandinavian countries in general have a little bit of issues with customs, I've noticed. But overall,
Interesting.
it's been pretty smooth.
Uh-huh.
Any customs issues that come up, I tend to contact the customer, relay sort of what we can do from there, or try to just get a reshipment out as soon as possible with the corrected customs information. But yeah, it can definitely be a hassle shipping internationally, but we've got a pretty decent handle on it. But some countries, yeah, Finland, I'm sorry, we can't ship to Finland.
So if I
At
may
least for now.
if I may ask, are you able to say, like, what kind of shipping company you use with that? Like, if you kind of do it in bulk? And the reason why I asked that is because I used to work for as an associate for a company called DHL, which DHL is an international freight and harbor company that specializes in, again, international shipping. And so I was just curious about that because I'm familiar with the rates of documents and parcel shipping internationally, but not so much in the bulk aspect.
Mainly, it's for the charms, for example, they're shipped individually, not in bulk, but they
Oh.
are shipped directly to Pirate Ship's export sorting center,
Uh-huh.
and from there, that's where they actually forward it to the international.
Interesting. That's fascinating. Now, international stuff aside, the other thing I have to ask about is is this something you're want to expand past just shipping? Like, have you set up booths or, like, other kind of things at, like, maybe conventions or,
Hmm.
get-togethers?
Yep. Actually, before I even started doing a lot of the collaborations, we started off selling just the anime shirts at Queen City Anime Con,
Mm-hmm.
which is localized to North Carolina, where I am. And yeah, we started selling originally there, and then that's sort of once I saw the interest was there for that. That's when I started to expand into having the online shop and starting to partner with VTubers and things like that.
So this essentially started almost in your backyard and has just now
Pretty much.
grown. What's funny is one of my best friends, actually, he moved and is currently living in North Carolina.
Oh, well, wow,
So I
nice.
don't know where, because I never asked him. Um, but it's one of those things where he's loving North Carolina. I don't know how much you love North Carolina.
It's pretty nice, It's fairly average. It's better than New York, where I'm from. So
Oh, I see. Look, I'm enjoying where I'm at right now in the northwestern part of the United States. Not in the state of Washington, but around that area. Like, because I'm originally from Las Vegas, so very much I'm a city guy. I'm a city boy, and now I live in a small town, a very small rural college town. So I completely understand the shift.
yeah, yeah, I like the smaller cities more than I do like the big city, honestly.
So, what how do you apply to do these conventions? Is it just one of those things where you just, because I think if I remember, for the Level Up convention, which is in Las Vegas, it's a pretty big convention in Las Vegas. growing pretty well, I'm pretty sure they have just vendor applications and you just kind of follow that. Like, do you have any
Yeah, pretty much.
What's your experience with that?
I have applied for a variety of conventions, but one of the things they look for typically is that you have a history of vending at various conventions, especially when you're applying for like the bigger ones like Offkai, Anime Expo, Anime NYC. They like to
Weebcon.
look for yeah, they like to they like to look for a history of you actually vending consistently and doing pretty well in that regard. So for the time being, I've applied a lot for the local cons, and I've gotten pretty much accepted every time. So I vended at Queen City Anime Con, and I vended. I'm trying to remember the name of the one recently, but it was another con here localized in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, pretty much you just have to show a history of vending at various conventions, showing that you have like a decent inventory, and then they sort of have like a jury selection process, or they do a randomized selection. It
Mm-hmm.
usually tends to be one of those two options.
Interesting. Like, this is all fascinating information. Because, like, to the average person, especially the average content creator, unless you work with a merch company, for instance, this is not stuff you would ever find out and you'd ever know.
Right.
So, then I'll have to ask: what words or advice do you think you could give to people who are content creators who are looking to get merch going and want to do that? Because I know there are like several companies that offer kind of template style things. I don't know how to it's a weird way to describe it, but essentially we have the shirt, give us the design, we'll take care of the rest.
Right.
Because what it sounds like is you work directly with the person in the partnership to help design things, right?
Yes.
And that's what sets you apart. So what advice or info would you have for anybody in chat here who may be a content creator who's looking to get merch going?
I would say if you're looking for an option that is probably, how do I phrase this? So if you're looking for like various options, I would definitely do the research first, because there's a lot of services that can be hit or miss when you're trying to like get into doing your own merch production. I would say I would recommend Vogue Race is probably one of the first options to go to if you're trying to produce things like acrylic stands, charms. That's a really good like option. Their minimum order quantity is pretty low, and I think it's probably, while logistically it might not make sense depending on how like large your audience is. If it's very small, you could probably honestly handle it yourself. But things like OtakuBon, one of the benefits is that we actually do handle logistics for you, and I think other companies like Uwu Market also handle that for you. So I would just recommend that you do the research on the various options that are available to you. It can be a little bit complicated trying to find the right one, and especially if you're having it handled by someone else, especially with apparel, that can be a bit pretty expensive, because they're pretty much handling all the distribution, the creation, things like that for you.
That is
I guess generally my advice would just be to do your research as much as you can. Reddit is a phenomenal resource for that. There's like a lot of VTubers that have posted in the VTuber subreddit about how to actually get started on that sort of stuff if you're trying to handle it on your own.
It's one of those things where I've seen people try and do, and it's when you don't have the business experience or the business acumen, you're trying to fight an uphill battle in the wind.
Yeah.
Because
it can be very overwhelming.
Whereas you might as well hire somebody to get you to the top and get a good starting point and see where it goes from there.
Right, because I think one of the things that you notice when you're doing like merch production on your own, it's a very big part of your time that you have to invest into it, which takes away from your ability to create content, stream, do other things. So yeah, that's why there's a large benefit in having like another company actually handle it for you, because it takes a lot of time to actually manage orders, fill them, handle customer support if that's necessary, things like that.
So say somebody wanting to apply for OtakuBon, what's the process for that and how would they go about doing that?
Pretty much we have that form on the website, which you would just pretty much reach out, give us your merchandise ideas. So we do have dedicated artists that we actually contract with to actually help produce merch, so you don't have to really worry about that unless you have your own merch design already, which is cool and saves us some time. So but pretty much you just would apply through the form, provide us your social media links. We get back to you about 1 to 2 days after we review everything, and we just sort of see what we can do to help you the best we can with actually getting started with producing merch.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic system. Much more streamlined, but still very
Yeah.
professional.
Mhm.
Imagine there was a lot of trial and error to get to that point.
Right.
Well, do you have any final words to say about that before we move on?
Not particularly, but yeah, definitely if you are interested in merch, for actually trying to get like started with producing it, OtakuBon, I think it's a pretty great option. Obviously, I'm biased here, but
It doesn't
yeah,
hurt to try to apply.
Yeah, doesn't hurt. So yeah, give it a try if you actually are interested in that.
Well said. Well, I think it's time we moved on to our next segment of information, and that is your YouTube channel. And I say it like that because actually I don't know why I said it like that. Pardon me, that's me trying to be the professional here. But your YouTube channel, this is where you primarily do all of your content.
Yep.
And it's interesting because a lot of the people I have on the show are not on YouTube. They're primarily Twitch. So before we talk about your commentary stuff, I think it'd be fun for us to spend some time talking about your experience on YouTube as a whole. And I think you expressed that you have not streamed a whole lot because you mostly focus on your videos.
Yep, that's correct.
So
I think I've streamed a total of like maybe 2 times like the past 6 to 12 months. So.
Look, all I gotta say is it happens. Streaming is hard. Now, what's been your experience being a VTuber on YouTube as opposed to Twitch?
It's a very interesting difference. I'm familiar a bit with the landscape of Twitch and like streaming in general, but creating videos is a very different game, I would say. You have to really create content in a very different way than if you were trying to create streaming content. You have to appeal because you're constantly trying to create content that is going to appeal in the long term, and that can be a very difficult thing because you have to create a lot of people create videos on like news topics, but the problem is that sort of content fades over time. Then you sort of get stuck in a cycle where you kind of have to keep doing that. Otherwise, your videos are gonna, you're gonna have a backlog of videos which have like low views or whatever. But I think creating for YouTube is very different in the sense that it's a very attention economy. You kind of have to like really garner the attention of the viewer really quickly. That could be very difficult. You have to create content that's sort of evergreen, where it sustains for a long time. That's something I try to do. Is I create videos on topics that I like to think sort of stand the test of time in the regard that you can watch them months later and still get some insight from them.
I was gonna say, I think a word that appropriately describes the content you're making is timely. Or timely and timeless, because that is a very good point. I feel like a lot of people don't bring up about these more news-oriented VTuber channels. I just realized my mic was like far away from my mouth.
All good.
Is that as time goes on, who's going to what purpose does anyone have to rewatch these old videos? And I think that kind of contributes to the culture we have in this community of people really trying to tackle and take these headlines and run with them. Because at the end of the day, it's a business, not a charity.
Right.
So I completely understand that. Because looking at your videos, 15,000 subscribers, 49 videos. That's a pretty good ratio. And if we look at the videos you're putting out, it seems there are periods of publishing, and then like there's a gap between let's see, the male VTuber problem versus the insane termination of Ryoran, which you get busy.
Yeah.
And
that was like a period of time where I was waiting for my new model to be developed, I believe. And I was getting busy with like other projects at the time.
Yeah. And trying to get back into that content grind, you're constantly trying to diversify all the stuff you have, because for instance, your most recent one, which was a month ago, Niji Sanji En released a statement on Slen Totsuki. Would you consider that timely, or would you consider that timeless?
I would consider that video to be a bit of both, honestly.
Yeah.
Because I think the topic, the topic itself is a bit of a very time-oriented topic, as in it was very popular at the time. But I think the commentary I provide in the video sort of isn't dating itself in a sense, where it's actually trying to chase the headline and be the first on the topic, but more provide a bit of an overview on the subject in a way that's a little bit more in depth.
No, I think that's a very good way to describe it, because what would make it timeless is just the history of Niji Sanji and where we are now, versus something like Slen Totsuki is now terminated. Where do we go from here?
Right.
You know, or even then, that could actually technically also fall into that category of it. It's kind of both. How do you strive to do that balancing act of creating that timeless content versus that timely content? And which one do you prefer to do more? I mean, obviously it's the timeless one, but you know, on a personal preference versus business.
I think honestly, on a personal preference, it is much easier to do videos on topics that are just happening, because I think there's a lot less investment I have to do on, you know, curating sort of like when you're making a video on a topic, for example, like what's a good example of this? The why the internet hates more Calliope. There was a lot of research that went into that video. Yeah, it's a banger.
For those that
research went into. Oh yeah, go on.
I was gonna say, for those that have not seen it, I encourage you to watch it. I watched that a couple days ago in preparation for this, and again, I'll link it. I'll link it right now. It's interesting. Chat is quiet. Like, we have people here. Chat is quiet, and I honestly love that, because it seems like people are intently listening. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But here's a link to the video. I highly encourage you guys to check it. I'll post in the Discord as well. It's a very good video that illustrates why the internet dislikes Mori Calliope, and it's not so much a personal, like an op-ed piece, but more of a, here is the information that's being presented that I'm giving to you. I have my own thoughts, but I don't think my thoughts represent the whole, kind of thing. And so you were saying, prior to me advertising it.
Yeah, and I think that video is a good illustration of the point of like sort of making timeless content, because even now I get like notifications on my phone. I can see pretty much every day now, I get like a trickle of comments to that video of people searching that question, wondering why people dislike her. So that's a good example of sort of the timeless concept I try to strive for. And while yes, it is a bit more easier to do like content that's based on a topic that just happened, trying to, you know, rush it out, I think honestly I do enjoy it. There's more personal satisfaction in the long term for videos like that, where it sort of stands the test of time and people come back to it repeatedly, or newer viewers come to learn about the subject later on and, you know, want to find out what's, you know, why people dislike Mori Calliope, for example.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at the comments, like the most recent ones. I'm like, interesting. The most recent one 3 days ago, only Twitter flies dislike her, like her there, just jealous at the end of the day. And the one below it is like attacking what they think is her physical appearance. I'm just like, and then again, that just makes you think that once these videos start to gain more traction, become bigger, you know, that's 430,000 views. That's a lot of views.
Yeah, if you look at the shorts, there's a short version of that too, where that one has even more views.
Has even more? All right, so let's take a look at the views. Let's see. Oh, that's one. I haven't even seen some of the shorts. Yeah, why people hate Mori Calliope. 735,000 views.
Yeah.
So
pretty wild.
That is pretty wild. But I guess it just goes to show what happens when you have that rounded and well-researched content that comes with making timeless videos. You know, now, what the heck? We love you. Oh, thanks, Lunar. Don't love me, love our guest. That's why they're here. But just making that timeless content to you have like a list, or do you have like all of these topics that you want to cover that are just kind of in the inbox currently?
I smiled when you said this question because there's so many video ideas I have.
Yeah, you were
I
waiting
just
for this
don't
question,
have-
weren't you?
Yeah. There's a ton. I have like so much of a backlog of video ideas that I've been wanting to do. I have thumbnails made for them and everything. I just haven't got around to like scripting them out or like, and I think I struggle with a bit of perfectionism with these kind of timeless videos because I think it takes a lot of time for me to become satisfied with it and want to put it out there.
Is it the editing? Is it the writing? Is it the delivery?
I think it's the writing for sure. The writing and the delivery, I would say. Trying to make sure I convey the points in a way that's interesting, make them in a way that I feel, this video holds up maybe like 3 months from now, things like that. And I think that's why making videos that are more on like time-oriented topics is a lot easier because you don't really have to worry about that. There's sort of a pressure to just push out the video that sort of supersedes that sort of perfectionism.
So what you're saying is, because of your experience in video editing, like you feel utterly confident in that, but just when it comes to the writing, it's what I've been told. This is what I've been kind of talking around with like with my artist friends, is like writing a script is like the line art of is like the line art of like recording, like video making, is because it takes the most time and you have to do it, and if you don't, you can't go forward, but everyone hates doing it.
Yeah, listen, I've sat down to many Google Docs with dread. Okay. Looking at that script, looking at that blank page. Yeah, it's very difficult to write a script sometimes, depending on what the topic is. And I think a lot of it is just I have the ideas of what I kind of want to talk about, but formulating that into a way that's interesting, keeps the viewer's attention, and I feel like sort of holds up is a bit of a difficult process. And I do the thing where I try to get it perfect in one go, which is not a great way to write at all, by the way. Just some advice. And that can make it very difficult for me to actually get started with scripts a lot of the time.
It's really funny you say that, because when I record, sorry Lunar, only mods can throw people in the Parawiggler. But it's one of those things where like when I record dialogue, like voiceover recordings, I don't keep any of my bad takes. I just delete them.
Yeah, same.
Because I'm like, this is the one. I got this. I don't need to keep any other one of them. And so like, and that's just when I do it for myself. But when I do other like VO recordings, that's when I do a bunch. But typically it's only at the very end, like the very last ones, you're just like, that's it. That's the one.
Yep. Yeah, when I'm recording, I literally just delete the pretty much the ones that I don't think are like actually the good ones right as I'm doing it, and that's not the greatest process.
It is a process, to say the least. It is one of the processes of all time. Now, how do you formulate, how do you structure your videos and your content in a way that makes sense, and that is comprehensive but is easy to digest?
I think it can vary depending on what the video is about, but I think it's typically I try to follow a bit of a structure similar to what we discussed a little bit earlier. A bit of a like sort of as I'm writing a script for like a speech. Pretty much just trying to convey the main points in a very cohesive structure, but opening with like a hook that sort of grabs the viewer's attention and sort of makes them want to watch and gives them bit of a reason to actually want to listen to what I'm saying here. Because I feel like a lot of people, I'm not a big channel by any means, but trying to introduce the viewers to why they should actually listen in the first place is a very important part of YouTube. And so you want to establish like, hey, I'm going to be talking about this, and this is why this topic is important and why you should listen to me, things like that. Opening with something like that and then following it up pretty quickly with just sort of an introduction to the subject and overview. Pretty much how I start most scripts.
Yeah. When you try and deliver your scripts, you try and deliver it, how do you try and deliver that? Because again, we talked about before, rapport is perhaps the second most important thing in a speech, second to that opener, because you know, if you don't have a good opener, nobody's going to want to listen to it. It's that honeymoon phase where the first 2 minutes, that's people are really listening and trying to make sure that is this important enough to listen to. And so the rapport, for those that don't know, rapport is essentially on what authority do you have to speak on a subject like this. And so you can kind of give yourself any reason to talk about a subject, even if you're not necessarily an expert. And what I mean by that is, let me expand. Say you're talking about a brand new pipeline that's being built in your town. It would intrude. You're not an engineer. You're not a civil engineer. You're not a the tradespeople working. You don't have all that knowledge, but you are a concerned citizen. And so you can use the rapport of, I've lived in this town for decades. I know the streets. I know the people. I know that this has the possibility to disrupt normal workflows and normal ways of life. And this is what's going to happen from the information they've given us. And so you're not necessarily the foremost expert in it, but you're still giving why you believe that you have on good authority to talk about it. So back to the question I was going to ask, how do you try and build that rapport after your attention getter on every video? Because you have to do that, I feel like, every single time to make sure that people know you are on good authority to speak on the subject.
That's an interesting question. I think that is something that I could honestly work on a bit more in my regard, because I think it depends on the video. Because I think when I'm doing videos that are more informative on the subject, as in I'm speaking from a bit of more of a place of authority, like for example, the male VTuber video, giving sort of the I'm a male VTuber, I sort of come from this background. That's sort of the talking point of why I think I have an authority to speak on the subject. Or even the more Calliope video, I think I speak from the example of, I'm seeing this everywhere I look. I go on Twitter, I go on 4chan, I go on whatever site it is, or TikTok even, and then I see that people are talking about more Calliope in a negative way. That's why this topic is important for me to talk about, because it's clear a lot of people dislike her, but why? I think that is something I don't do in every video, building that rapport, but I think it's definitely an important aspect of making videos that could probably honestly be leaned into a bit more in my own content.
I think there's always things that people could try and include into their content. I mean, a little more, whether that is the writing, the editing, the presentation. Because like, for instance, again, my big thing is the writing. I can do the editing, I can do the recording. The writing just is so hard. So, what tips have you found in brainstorming and figuring things out for writing scripts and trying to get your thoughts from brain to pen to paper?
I think one of the main things is definitely the point I made earlier, that you don't want to try to perfectionist the first draft or anything like that. And I think bullet point all your ideas and sort of mapping them into like a cohesive structure beforehand is a very helpful way of getting sort of everything out there and realizing what's actually essential to the video. Because I think a lot of times you may want to include something, but it's really not as important to the viewer as you may think it is originally. Another thing I think that also works, and I would give this advice to anyone doing YouTube, before you actually start like drafting the finalized idea and start working on the script, please make the title and thumbnail first, because I think you have to work on the packaging of the video and how you have to you have to work on the packaging of the video. People aren't going to ever see the video and actually hear your script if the packaging isn't good. And I think a lot of people tend to do that after the fact, and they sort of have to make up and compensate for the fact that they didn't think about, why would someone want to click this in the first place and want to see this video before they began actually working on it?
How do you go about making a good thumbnail? Because, and I say good thumbnail, that's a very subjective
that's a very open question.
But let me refine it. In your opinion, what makes a good a good thumbnail? What makes an eye-catching thumbnail that makes you say, "Hey, I want to watch this video, this 45-minute video where somebody rants about how there's not enough Power Rangers in VTubing"?
I think a thumbnail has to incite intrigue, and I think one of the things you can do with a thumbnail is open a question in the viewer's mind that connects sort of with the title. So, for example, if I had a video, it was like, trying to think of a good example of this.
Pardon me. Oh, my Helldivers stream thumbnail. I don't think many people saw that one. Well, let me see if I can find it. What is this? What was that? Oh, that was that that was that bread. Because like my thumbnails are like, if I actually sat down and got serious, I think I can make decent thumbnails. But like that's because the stream died horrifically. Yeah, it did. So I was trying to play Helldivers on stream, and my computer just was not having it. And what made me really sad was I made the best thumbnail. Like I freaking like it's not good. I love making scuffed thumbnails. I do. Like that's just that's just my artistic contribution to the world. They're just everything is poorly photoshopped and I love it. That's because you didn't update your drivers since last. So the reason why, Kenny, is because I didn't update my drivers. Like but like for instance, where is it? I'm making a video. This is the thumbnail I'm going to be using for it.
Oh my god.
So this is what I was working on. This is what I didn't put an A on a Walmart. So it just says Walmart. No.
Oh god.
But this was the thing I spent time doing before when you joined.
You know, it's definitely something. It's something.
Like I said, I love making these kinds of thumbnails. So perhaps that's something else that should also be considered is personal preference and style.
Right. There's definitely something to that, because I feel like a lot of creators there's a lot of creators who literally don't even make thumbnails. They'll just use a screenshot from the video. So I mean, you can do a lot with like just the title alone, but I think the thumbnail also has to convey a sense of consistency and also a stylistic choice, like you said, because there are scuffed thumbnails I've seen, like from a lot of people that make like parody videos, or they'll make like let's plays. They have a very distinct style, which isn't necessarily traditionally the most eye-catching or traditionally the most professional, but it works for them.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because like for instance, these are the thumbnails I use for the show right here, which I think work pretty well. I really like them. I think they're professional. I think they get the point across. You know, I don't want to over clutter with text, because the thing is, unless I'm making a video where I'm trying to describe the information into it, this is more for, since it's just a backlog and I don't expect people to be watching every single one unless I have a bigger audience. For now, I think this gets the job done. And so, could it be better? Very much so. I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not a wizard at Photoshop, okay? I'm an audio engineer. So, but so, you know, as you're making these, because you talked about eye-catching, it can be very easy to get down the rabbit hole of clickbait.
Yeah.
So how do you create a thumbnail that is both eye-catching, yet it essentially allows you to see what you're going to be watching? Because in the kind of way you kind of described it is, I should be able to tell what the video is the instant I see what it's about. So for instance, we need to talk about these Niji fans. It's a picture of Kyo with a bunch of comments.
Yeah.
And so that leads me to believe, is this a video about Niji Sanji fans, you know, talking about Niji Sanji fans talking about, like, is it? Oh, there's a thunderstorm outside. Sorry, I was just like
Oh yeah, I was over here too. Wow.
my ADHD brain. I don't have ADHD, but one of these days I'll talk to my psychiatrist and see what's going on. But you know, how do you try and make these eye-catching, semi-truthful thumbnails without it being dishonest?
That's a bit of a balancing act. Though some of the thumbnails are made by me, and as I make the base template, and I have a thumbnail artist who does a little bit of touching up on that. So, for example, a good example of this is the Niji En video. I made the base thumbnail for that, but actually, I think I made that entire one. That's a good example of what I'm talking about. That one, for example, is sort of. I think what it does well is that it provides enough information and sort of gives you an idea of sort of what is leading into what I'm going to be talking about without necessarily giving away sort of everything. For example, like the character assassination line sort of gives you an idea of what sort of my opinion is, but it doesn't necessarily tell you from what angle, why do I believe that, things like that. The Gone sort of gives you an idea of like they left the company, etc., like that. I think what you want to do is try to not just cross the line to where you're misleading with the thumbnails, but you do want to try to give the like open a question partially about, okay, so if you had a thumbnail about like one topic, like for example, the more Calliope one is a very good example of like it doesn't really give you much context, but I think it builds enough intrigue with its own about with the title that sort of plays well into the thumbnail. Sorry for not answering this question correctly.
No,
it's a very hard thing to describe.
It is. It really is.
To make a good thumbnail.
That's like saying, how do you make a good headline without it giving away too much, but also not giving without making not giving enough, but also not giving too much. You're basically saying, how do you capture lightning in a bottle?
Yeah.
Now, is that to say that there are certain things that can be done that very subtly that change that meaning? Because for instance, looking at I was just thinking, if you see the more Calliope one with the thumbnail so just says hated, how much would the meaning change if you put hated with a question mark right after the word?
Right. Yeah, even something subtle like that would change it to be like, is she actually hated on YouTube, or is it like how it is now? It's like sort of like, yeah, this is just a fact that like a lot of places you go, you see a lot of hate from more Calliope. The question mark would open a bit more intrigue, like, is there actually that much hate for her? Which is not sort of the video's entire point,
Of course. In your experience of making all of these videos, what stands out to you the most in terms of the biggest hurdles you had to jump over in order to get besides the writing?
I would say just sort of the confidence in my own opinions, being willing to share that. I think a lot of the difficulty I run into even now sometimes with scripts is just being confident and being able to just share my opinions openly and being able to convey it in a way that I think actually accurately depicts how I feel about the subject with the nuances and everything like that without being misconstrued. I think that's sort of a bit of an issue I have, is feeling like my position won't be most accurately presented if I don't put a lot of time into explaining it in the best way I could.
Yeah. Trying to explain. I mean, I feel like trying to explain with that is all anybody can really say is just ask of you is you trying to do your best. And I know a majority of people like pick a side, take a stance. And at the end of the day, it's hard to remain impartial when there's so much verbal talk that's occurring in the back of your head. That leads me to my next question. People criticize and people are mean.
Yeah.
How do you deal with the criticism about videos like this? Because when you make commentary videos, there's plenty for those 10 people that say this was a really good video. There's always there's one person that says this video was not good. This video was garbage, and that stands out more than the kind comments. How do you respond, and how do you deal with criticism when it comes to talking about these kinds of things that are deeply central to a person?
I think sometimes I think a lot of the time I just tend to really just brush it off, because I think a lot of it depends on where the criticism is coming from. And I think a lot of the time criticism doesn't come from the most valid place. And I think sometimes I've gotten criticism on videos, which I think is actually very constructive and actually addresses what I'm talking about in the video in a way that's actually not combative. I think a lot of the problem with the way people convey criticism online is that they're extremely combative, and even if you like talk to them about it, and they can't see your point of perspective. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's sort of the unless someone's actually addressing my video in a way that I think is very willing to have a dialogue about it, I don't think I tend to let it get to me too often, because that person just wanted to sort of spew their opinion, same way I'm giving my own opinion, and just sort of doesn't really care about sort of being right or wrong or sharing an actual conversation about the topic.
Yeah, I know that. I guess I'm grateful because I don't make YouTube content yet, but thankfully a lot of the dialogue and the things that I get when it comes to this kind of thing is, I thankfully don't get a lot of criticism with it. Whether it's bound to change in the future, I don't know. But considering you have, again, 15,000 subscribers, considering the VTuber sphere, that is a decent amount. And so you do command a little bit of an audience and a little bit of a little bit of authority on certain subjects and things like that. You know, what do you find is the best way to incorporate criticism, like good criticism, or dismiss the bad ones?
I think you have to sort of reflect on the if you're trying to incorporate good criticism, I think you need to reflect on where that criticism is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
While criticism can be good in the sense that it's a fair point, I can't really disagree with you. I can see where you're coming from. It may not necessarily be the most relevant to sort of cater to that all the time, because it could just be 1 in 100 people that actually believe that, while 99 others actually think, oh, you made a fair point, that's actually, you conveyed it well, that was actually a good take, whatever. I think you just really need to evaluate where the criticism comes from and whether or not it actually is reflective of something that's wrong with your content and you, or if it's something that's just personal opinion from the person giving the criticism.
I think that's a very interesting way of putting it. Is um, parsing out at what point it becomes personal, what point it becomes professional. Because like that's a motto I kind of live by in my professional work in entertainment. Is a lot of people, especially when it comes to content creation, it overlaps a lot with the entertainment industry. In order to survive and thrive in it, you have to source out and you have to understand the intentions of individuals in how they deliver their communication. Because some people can say, that was really good, you did a good job, and then there's say, man, that was really bad. Here's what you can do to be better. And I guess perhaps something, maybe I could hear your thoughts on this, is it really comes down to seeing where the energy is directed at. Because if the criticism is directed at my show or the stream, I feel like that's valid criticism. But when it's directed at me personally, that's where it starts to become a point of contention. Because the saying that I always give, because a lot of people, they'll say something to me and they'll come later and apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry if I came off this way. It wasn't right of me. And all I say is, you have no reason to apologize. It's not professional, or it's not personal. It's simply professional. And I feel like if that's one of the best ways people can kind of look at that dialogue of where is the intention being directed. Because people will offer things. I am a very outspoken individual, and in my way of communicating opinions and thoughts and ideas. I have no problem telling somebody your idea is stupid. But I'm not going to say you're a stupid individual because of your opinion or your idea. I'll just say I think your opinion or I think your idea is dumb. I don't think you're dumb. Just what you said was dumb. And I like that completely changes the meaning of it. You know, I'm not attacking them personally. I just sometimes you just need to tell somebody your idea is dumb, rework it and fix it. That's why I run a lot of my scripts. I run through the people who I trust in my server. Like, what do you guys think about this? Oh, I don't like that. I think that could be better. Oh, how so? X, Y, and Z of this. Okay, I'll take some of those things, but I disagree on other parts. And so it's very much a collaborative effort, so long as the intentions are in the right place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a lot of the issue is that people tend to get their identities and their sense of self sort of tied in with their content. So any criticism of their content becomes a criticism of them personally, which is very hard for a lot of people to sort of divorce the two, because you're putting something of you out in the world when you are making content, but it's very hard to understand that criticism of the content is not an indictment of you personally.
It's a very good way of putting it. Man, I wish more people would say that, of the idea of divorcing yourself from the content.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes people live vicariously through their content.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, that can certainly be detrimental, and it can
Right.
affect things on a more professional level. Now, I'll ask one more question before I think we kind of take a little break. And I say a break, we'll move on to like a throwaway kind of section where you'll learn in a second that I take my guests by surprise. Don't worry, nothing bad. It's just funny. But it's this. Because the landscape of VTubing and content creation is always expanding, how do you plan to evolve and be up to date and be able to adapt to these changes without kind of lagging behind? It's a very deep question.
A lot of it, I think a lot of it is tapping into the pulse of the community and understanding where the trajectory is going.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people can get sort of insulated in their little communities or circles when they're like in these like sort of spheres in content creation, but trying to get a broader view of where the trajectory is going with VTubing is, I think, probably the best way to go forward, and understanding sort of how things are changing. I mean, for example, like even the past 4 years, I mean, the shift of it becoming sort of an international thing,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just a localized to Japan thing, is a good example of how some companies were able to tap into that, like Hololive, Niji Sanji, but others didn't sort of catch the race and sort of lagged behind in that regard. You sort of have to just sort of keep an idea of the broader trends going on with the audiences and
Mm-hmm.
the creators.
That's very, very apt way of trying to figure that out. If you're not constantly trying to stay on that pulse and stay on that beat, you will fall behind, as stuff is always changing, and it's either you change with it or you ultimately leave it behind. And I think that's where people tend to fall. And it also comes down to how you treat this hobby, whether you treat it as a hobby, or I feel like in your case you treat it as a job, a secondary job.
Right.
Yeah. Well, these are all very good thoughts, very good advice and feelings that you've shared about this, especially on commentary. So let's take a little.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I'm loving this. I feel like this so far whew, gotten such good stuff from this. So let's transition to something a little sillier. Revolver Goku Chow. Oh, that's right, because they're playing Russian roulette in my chat. So I have a flowchart that I like to show to all of my guests. I don't tell them about it unless they've seen the show. And this flowchart, okay, was created by my head mod in a drunken haze, where I took it and I refined it. And we ultimately came to the conclusion that all food and drink can be put into 4 categories. Now, this is not a new concept. We simply refined it. And that, my friend, is this flowchart right here. The VOD presents the food definition flowchart. Yo, what's up, Pink? On a side note, I gotta shout out one of my previous guests, because of you, Pink. That was a very successful stream, but also a very chaotic stream. So I have you to thank for that. Guys, go support Pink Zombie. They recently debuted a model. Put that away? No. We need to redo it. That's right, we need to redo that stream because basically almost everyone in chat were throwing and cheering bits and gifting subs because their intention was to make it so I could not ask a question the entire show.
Oh god.
That was it. We only answered 3 questions that weren't the last 10. So, it was a wild ride. That's all I gotta say. Can I put Phantom in the Pear Wiggler? That makes me upset. All right. Anywho, that was the Chaos Crew. It was the Chaos Crew. So anywho, this food flow chart, okay? This has been through many revisions. How many times do you think this chart has been revised?
I'll say 5.
We were close. This was changed 6 times. All because of my chat. All because of my chat. Now, the idea is you can give me any food, and we can classify it in any of these 4 categories. And if we can't, because there's a lacking of information, we put that in the do not worry category. Some people say it's a cop-out. I say you're just jealous because I thought of a way around your loopholes. So then why is it when I get here it's the chart? A lot of my people who tune in and watch this, they hate the flow chart. Because originally when we changed this, it was is it a majority liquid or solid? And because of this, people kept fighting me on it, of saying that a watermelon is technically a soup because it's a majority, it's like 70% liquid or 80% liquid, something like that.
Yeah, lettuce would also be a soup in that regard.
And so I had to change this to be like, is it state of matter a solid or a liquid? And so that completely changes things now. Also, I am getting my Discord pings. Why is stream mode not working? We're not talking about the human sandwich. Basically, chat came to the consensus that humans are emergency soup because of that. And I never wish to talk about that again. Humans, see, there you go. Humans are emergency soup. But anywho, the point being is that I want you to give me a food. Give me your favorite food. And we'll categorize this into the soup, steak, salad, sandwich categories. Okay?
Trying to think.
And
Good option here.
And then by the end of it, we'll see whether or not you think this food chart holds up. I'll ping your Discord. No, you. It's always an emergency. Oh, then the Robe shows up because Robe's the one who started this whole thing of the emergency soup.
God, I'm trying to think of something that would actually break this flowchart here.
I'm trying to what?
I'm trying to break the flowchart here. I'm trying to think of something that would actually break it, but it's pretty solid. I would just yeah, it does work.
And the thing is that the biggest part that could possibly have a loophole, quote unquote, is the state of matter, because people are like, what about mashed potatoes? What about ketchup? If you're questioning it, you're unsure, therefore don't worry about it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And mono, another thing is like, we call it the Skittles, the Skittles paradox. A singular Skittle is a steak, but multiple Skittles in a bowl is a salad.
What the fuck?
But this is what I will say.
That just broke my brain.
My rebuttal. If you have one piece of lettuce in a bowl, is that a salad? Or is it a salad when you put multiple pieces of lettuce in it? No, it's not! A singular leaf of lettuce in a bowl is not a salad. That's just lettuce.
Nah, I'd say it's salad. I agree with Chad.
Kenny, whose side are you on? What do you mean it's a salad with one lettuce? That's not how that works. Let me
a salad's kind of like just one big, mashed up lettuce,
answer the question, you wonderful guest.
I guess I'll go like an apple fritter,
Apple fritter, the donut. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So let us do this. Is the apple fritter going to be eaten? Yes, no, or maybe? And if you say maybe, the question cycles back in on itself until you have yes or no.
Yes.
All right. Is it state of matter, solid, or liquid?
It's a solid.
Is it a single mass or multiple parts?
Single mass.
Okay. And the way how I've circumvented the possibility of, well, you could take it apart. Well, guess what? Now you have to go back to the beginning of the question, because now you have to say, is the apple fritter with multiple parts taken apart? Is that, now you have to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
So since it's a single mass, an apple fritter is a steak. Let me phrase that. It's in the steak category. It's not a steak. I have to clarify, because some people think when I say, like, a watermelon is a steak, they're like it's not a steak. I'm like, no, it's in the steak category. Like, pizza's not. It's not a salad, or it's not a sandwich. It's not a steak. I'm like, it's just in the category. F this chart, F you too. Not this lovely guest though. So, like I said, you notice how nobody was talking in my chat? Like, they were just listening and just here. And it wasn't until we brought up the chart that's when everybody came out of the woodworks to take a dump on this thing.
Yeah, I'd rouse the feathers.
I went from 10 viewers to 6 now. Or 10 to 16, excuse
16.
me. I went from 10 to 16. See, this is... I'm not refunding those points, Lunar.
I joined them. I'm gonna join them in this.
How dare you?
I understand the hatred for the chart. I don't like an apple fritter being a steak.
Bear in mind, I can't hear you.
Okay.
All right, now I spoke too soon. Hello, God, are you there? It's me, Margaret. I'd like to hear my... Nope, okay.
Nope.
I'm about to turn that off. Y'all can't contain yourself. Don't forget to hydrate. I ran out of my beverage. No speaking, just let's think about your acts. So what do you think about the food chart? What do you think about it?
I understand the chat's hatred for it. I don't like the apple fritter being in the steak category.
But it's not whether or not you like it, it's whether you think it's the chart is valid, and the chart is it can be broken.
I feel like it needs a... I don't know.
It's
I don't know. I feel like a
propaganda.
fifth propaganda. Yeah.
So all I'm gonna say is, if I got merch, I want this to be on a shirt.
That would be something. I sure would be.
It would be. Imagine the looks you'd get. Imagine the looks you'd get, and imagine the amount of people that want to punch you on the spot.
Yeah. Upset a lot of people with this one.
Look, there's already a lot of drama in the VTuber community. You might as well throw in your piece of wood and keep it going.
Yeah. The food I'm here for the food definition flowchart drama.
There you go. Look, all I'm gonna say is I hope I can grow. I hope I can be big. That way I can have big names, because imagine one of my goals, because I have like 3 people I want to have on the show. I absolutely want to have Lucius Merriweather on the show. I would consider him my Oshi. I want to have, who was it? I want to have Girl DM on, because Girl DM was one of my big inspirations for becoming a VTuber. And then I want to have Tenma Miami on my show, because I want that chaos and I want to see her reaction to this chart.
That would be perfect.
Because just imagine I show it to her, and the first thing she's like, "What is this stupid chart?"
I could hear it in her voice immediately. Yeah.
Right? Just immediately, you are stupid. Chat, I agree with you. This is utter bulk. It is like, go. You're stupid. I'm done. Go go after something. Just like leaves the call, and then comes back. Oh my gosh, it's just, like I said, I have aspirations for this show, and one of them is to see what bigger names in the VTuber community think about this stupid pile of sin. So anywho, let's get rid of that. Let us look at Pizza Rat for a moment, because Pizza Rat is good. I love Pizza Rat.
God bless Pizza Rat.
See, you know Pizza Rat. Several people don't know Pizza Rat. And then we'll look at the Pear Wiggler, so you guys have context on the Pear Wiggler. And then we'll move on to our last set of questions. See, like I said, I like having this because it's a nice break from the serious questions. Because we go from professional to now this feels like a crap post.
Yeah.
Is that live footage of Live? Yes. Well, technically it's live footage of Mercury. Mercury wins. So, taking the pizza. But yeah, I think, anywho, I think the last, like, 20 minutes I'd like to use the time for is to talk about, if you're okay with it, talk about your experience as a video editor for Idlecore. If there's any, like, if there's much to talk about.
There isn't a lot to talk about. Also, I gotta be a little careful here.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I do think it's been a pretty positive experience and it's opened a lot of doors to opportunities with other agencies and other creators that I've been able to work with. I think it's been really interesting experience to sort of get my foot in the door with understanding how that sort of works behind the scenes and everything like that.
Now, thankfully, I'm not here to, I kind of talked about this with you before. We're not here to talk about Idlecore. We're here to talk about you as a video editor. Because video editing is a very big part of content creation, much like writing. But video editing is a very big part of of content creation. How did you come to settle as because I imagine I could say you're primarily a video editor. Would that be correct?
Somewhat, yeah. I'd say it's not my main thing, but yeah, I do it quite a bit.
How did you come to do this?
I would say my first videos that I ever edited were when I was like 12, editing like Sims Machinima on like a Sony Vegas on a broken laptop. It was like the poor man setup. It was so bad. But I'm very self-taught in the regard that I went from Sony Vegas to Adobe Premiere. A lot of it is just learning from tutorials and over time. I've been doing it for a very long time, so I've just sort of garnered that experience. And I think eventually, maybe as of maybe a year or two ago, I decided to start doing it a little bit more freelance for other people rather than for my own videos. And that's been a pretty interesting experience because you have to like learn how people's styles are. You have to sort of make videos in a way that appeals to their audience rather than what you personally want to do. It's a very different experience than making videos for yourself.
Do you still use Sony Vegas Pro, or do you...
I do not.
No.
I do not. No.
What do you use then?
I use Adobe Premiere now. I'm locked into their ecosystem for life now.
Interesting. What about it about Premiere Pro is that you find so like the workflow suitable to you?
I think it's all the presets and extensions and a lot of the things that I have just are so interlocked now that it's very difficult for me to switch over to something else.
What all of the programs have you tried?
I've tried DaVinci Resolve, and man, I'm confused whenever I look at a node, man. I don't know how to understand it.
Okay.
I've looked up tutorials.
Okay.
It confuses me so much.
To be fair, DaVinci is not how do I put this? It is an all-in-one editor, and so it has node-based software for compositing, but I really wouldn't use that. You might as well go with something like Blender or Nuke.
I've seen people, the tutorials I watched to do things that I did in Premiere, it seems like they were using nodes for that, and it really confused me. I just gave up. I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't. I'll just stick with Premiere for now.
All
But
I,
every time I try to learn DaVinci, the learning curve was just very difficult for me. I don't know.
I find that it tends to work actually a little better for me with because I also use Premiere Pro for video editing. I find that I've been going to DaVinci a little more because I find that the presets for DaVinci are actually a little easier, a little more user friendly than Premiere Pro is.
I think part of the thing is a lot of my presets I have like custom ones that are like made by other people, and I have
Interesting.
ones that I've made myself, and I also have like extensions that are built in like Premiere Composer, Excalibur. I have like a video downloader which integrates directly into Premiere,
What?
things like that. That I just yeah, I have a lot of things. I have a lot of extensions on Premiere right now that it would just be very difficult to switch to DaVinci.
Oof. I mean, I don't blame you. Like I said, DaVinci is a very good free software. And the thing is, there's a reason why DaVinci it's the industry standard for color correction.
Right.
Because if you're color correcting in Premiere Pro, Lord have mercy on your soul.
Yeah.
You're tying bricks to your feet and throwing yourself in the ocean.
Yeah, Lumetri color is not very intuitive.
That's why it's not Fairlight. Fairlight's the audio one. DaVinci color correction. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I think it's just called color, or this is something like that. But it's very good. And it works pretty well. Fairlight's okay. But in my experience, like, I don't know, DaVinci's a very good basic one. Very good. Now, how do you feel about the other softwares? Like, what is it? Cap something? Cap Clipper? Like
CapCut. Yeah,
CapCut?
CapCut.
What is
I've
that?
used it very infrequently for like TikTok and such. It's not. It's a very beginner friendly software.
Mhm.
I would recommend for people that aren't actually very experienced with Premiere or DaVinci. It's a very easy to pick up software, and I think that's sort of the utility of it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I just prefer to have the options that are available to Premiere because then if you find something you can't do in CapCut, you have to like bring it over to another software, and just it's a bit of annoying workflow.
I will say I do enjoy Premiere Pro's transcription software. It's built into it,
Yep.
which makes it easy to make subtitles.
Yeah, it's very actually funny enough. I actually do manual subtitles. I usually write them
Really?
out myself. Yeah, I should probably switch over. I've just done it for such a long time that I've just never messed around too much with the live transcription because you have to like correct it, and then it does it on like a different layer than typical text layers. It's a bit of an annoying thing. I don't know.
Well, so that's the thing. You can convert it to a graphic instead.
Yeah, I didn't learn that until like maybe a month ago. I thought.
To be fair, they don't explicitly say, yes, highlight all of this and convert it to a graphic so it's now on your timeline as a picture.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I love using it for my subtitles because I use it as a basis to do it, where it's all there and now all I have to do is just correct some of the letters and just adjust lengths.
Yep.
And it makes it much easier to do. So now, as you're editing all of your videos, what does a typical workflow look like for you to make editing? Well, I guess let's back up. What is a typical time frame of like a normal video you make? How long does that take? Like on your channel, not like other people's stuff, like with Idlecore, but like your stuff.
If I were to edit like diligently and not procrastinate as I love to do,
Heck yeah.
it would probably take me about 2 to 4 days. Usually on the lower end, especially if the video is not heavily edited. And the workflow would typically it's all over the place. What I do, which is not advisable for anyone trying to do editing, is I edit as I go rather than editing in separation of like steps. So I will edit up to 1 minute, and then with all the effects, all the things, and then I will edit the next minute, which is not an efficient way of doing that. I prefer that way because it feels like I'm seeing progress rather than I guess it just feels more like I'm progressing that way if I do it than if I do it the other way.
It's fair. I understand that. It's just my workflow. Like, I feel like if I'm not just putting clips in one at a time and just doing that, I don't know. I kind of agree where I just feel like I don't see progress, because that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing that's kind of scares me sometimes, is getting all like when I see a timeline that has all of the clips on it, I just see all of it organized like without any like cropping or any like correction. I think I'm like, how do you have this vision in mind?
Yeah.
Oh
One
my.
thing I do is I'll like scroll, like I'll try to keep zoomed in on the timeline, and then whenever I zoom out, I'm like, oh no, this is how much is left.
Oh, that's my biggest pet peeve about that is it's like, all right, let me zoom out a little, and suddenly it's like you're zooming out of the universe, and
Yeah.
everything just is so small. Like, no, 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 let me go back. I want to see it. But then once you do that, it then zooms in too far, and now you have to scroll left or right to find where you need, and there's like no
Yeah.
in between.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. But using Premiere, it's good. I use more of their other things, like I use Photoshop and I use Illustrator.
Yep.
But I also like After Effects is one I want to learn more of.
Oh god. Yeah, After Effects is like DaVinci. It scares me. It scares me so much. Every tutorial I've seen on After Effects, I get overwhelmed like 2 minutes in. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm checking out.
It do be like that sometimes.
It's just such, the interface is like there's so much going on too. It's just, I don't know. It scares me.
Yeah. How many revisions do you find yourself going through before you actually settle on a final product? Because you talked about yourself being such a perfectionist and holding yourself to a high standard. How many times do you find yourself reviewing and editing things at the end?
Surprisingly, with the video editing, I don't get that as much. I would say it tends to. I tend to do about 2 to 3 like run through of the video. After it's pretty much been done with the timeline. I tend to get it with script writing is more so than video editing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I get sometimes to the point of video editing where I'm like, okay, listen, I'm not gonna sit here for like another 3 hours fiddling with this timeline. I'm just gonna call it a wrap. So the video doesn't have to be that ambitious. Come on.
That's honestly me sometimes when I'm editing audio, is that I'm like, I have spent 2 hours in 3 different programs that are linked to my audio software trying to get rid of a singular cough that happens in
Yeah.
a background. There's only so much I can do. I'm like, you know what? I realized I can't get rid of that. We're just going to live with that. We're just gonna have to live with it.
Yeah, I come to a pretty quick acceptance point. I have a pretty low endurance when it comes to like doing stuff like that. So I have to like really pace myself with that, because I do get like frustrated with editing. So I was like, okay, we're just gonna accept that this is gonna be perfect. But I think with script writing, I don't know, it just kicks in a lot more of that perfectionism.
Perfection is just such a hard thing to get over. And working
Right.
a thing like this. Now, if you're doing clientele-based work as opposed to your own, now I'm not saying you're talking explicitly about stuff within Idlecore, but using that as like an example of that kind of clientele work. How do you work with the client, and how do you work with a client to deliver the quality content that they expect? Because at least in my experience working with client-based work like that, your first draft is never going to be the one that's good.
Yep. Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's really just, it can depend on how specific the client is being. Sometimes they want you to be very creative, and they want you to sort of take the reins over with the project. But I think I prefer a lot more when the client is very specific about what they want. They give examples, things like that. I really do like direction, because it sort of limits a lot of the areas of mistake that I could make with not capturing the vision of what they wanted.
Yeah. Now, when you going back to your own work, how critical do you find yourself being, like scrutinizing every little thing, and just at what point do you specifically decide to, I need to move on, I can't do this?
I think it's after just sort of the time that I've sort of invested in it. It just sort of, I just don't see a return on investment of like trying to tweak it further. I just don't think, for example, if I'm working on like a major section and I'm thinking about logistically how many people are gonna pause for this 2 frame edit, like I just have to think about it like that, because I think I do have to put some limitations on how long I want to spend on a video, because I notice the longer I spend on video, the more likely I am to scrap it, which I've scrapped a lot of videos because I just waited too long to work on them. And eventually I'll pick up some videos from that graveyard and work on them, but I do have to put some limitations on how much time I'm willing to spend on a video, because otherwise it's just gonna frustrate me. I'm gonna just be like, oh, well, I guess I'm done with this idea.
There's so many things that make you just want to go, yeah, I had to throw out the entire thing. I had to burn the entire thing.
Yep.
It just doesn't work. Now, when you actually finish it, getting everything set up, or pardon me, getting everything edited. What then do you try and do to sort of reflect and improve? Because whenever I look at an edit that I do, I always think to myself, okay, what happened in there that I could fix or do better at? Because clearly it wasn't working.
I think one of the things I try to do is definitely look at the analytics of the video. I'm very in depth into sort of looking into the data and seeing sort of like retention, looking at the click-through rate, seeing sort of where the video may have not been the best. And I think I try to look for mainly if there's like a retention dip, for example, I try to look for why the viewer might have actually clicked off the video, what in this section bored them enough to not really want to engage with it further. Or if a video, for example, doesn't actually get that many comments or many likes, what about the video made the viewer not want to engage with it on a level that made them want to like or comment?
How do you try and like with all the editing, like, do you get editing criticisms often when it's not from a client?
For editing, no. I think the editing is probably one of the things I get pretty praised on generally. I think it's tend to be that I notice errors in sort of my voiceover or either in the script itself.
Interesting. We're going to be wrapping up this last section very soon.
Okay.
So what I'll ask is, since video editing is such an integral part about making content, because I know with with others, it can be very hard. How do you find the drive and the motivation to want to do it? Because I think that's something that a lot of people would benefit to know, of what motivates you to want to do it.
Man, that's a question I could ask myself, because a lot of days I really don't feel like doing it. But I think honestly, I think just developing a steady pace. I think really, I don't know if motivation's even the right thing to chase in a lot of regards. I think sometimes you just have to power through. I think oftentimes motivation comes after you already start doing the thing. A lot of times, and you don't really get that motivation before. Like, you have a motivation to continue after you've already begun before, rather than getting it beforehand. Sometimes you just have to just start and move past that motivation, lack of motivation rather.
It's kind of just getting in the motion and just seeing why you started doing it to begin with. Why you're choosing to pursue it. Because I know when I feel like I have to be in a very specific mood in order to get it going. Because if I'm not, again, there's just no drive. So I think I agree. I think the best thing one can do is just find that drive. Because I feel like if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's just not worth it. Because I think I'd rather spend time trying to find that purpose and trying to find that happiness of what I'm doing, than sit there and be miserable. Being like, I'm editing this, I can't do it. It's just awful. I
don't know. Yeah, I've definitely had those moments where I'm just like, oh my god, I can't do this.
I've definitely had those moments too. That's why I follow the Pomodoro method.
Yeah, I try to really just get started with the thing, even if I'm not feeling motivated a lot of times, because I feel like once I'm starting to see progress, once I'm starting to see the video actually come along, that's when the motivation to keep going actually starts to kick in.
Yeah. Got to get that carrot on the stick.
Yep.
Well, do you have any last minute thoughts to say or any advice to give for those who are wanting to be more inclined in grabbing their videos, clipping and editing?
One of the things I would mention, I'm trying to think, what's a good piece of advice for video editing? I would definitely say, look into presets, because it would save so much time. That's my biggest piece of advice. It saves so much time to just learn what resources are out there, especially with Premiere. There's a lot of resources out there that a few years ago I didn't know about, but learning about them, like presets from like Finzar, or tools like a Scalp or a Video Composer, or no, Premiere Composer. Yeah, those things speed up your editing a lot, and I would really recommend them for people getting into Premiere.
When I told one of my buddies about what a LUT was, they lost their minds because they're like, oh, I could use this as, you know, instead of like just guessing, I could use this to have like a baseline and work from there. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't know what that was? He's like, no, I didn't know what that was. Because like in one of my video classes I was taking on my campus, I'm like, we're in the second level of the 4-course like video class system. So
yeah, I think I taught my roommate how to video edit a little bit, and he was like, he started spotting a lot of the presets in videos that he watches of other people using a very similar effects. He's like, oh, I used to think it was so hard, but a lot of it just looks like they just use preset slide in effect here.
honestly, that's what I've been doing. Like, I need to find a better way. Maybe we could talk about that. You show me how to save presets in Premiere Pro, because I'm like, I just find myself geez, I have the hiccups. I just find myself using the same transitions for all my shorts, and I'm like, I don't mind that. It's just easier that way. But I have to meticulously like save it, or not save it, like delete things around it, and just keep those, and just like save one video file that is like off to the right, that has the effects in it. And so I just copy the effects
you
and
definitely
paste.
need some presets.
Maybe we could talk about that. Get together one of these days to talk about it. You teach me how to do that, because that would save a mountain of time.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, we've talked about a lot of really good things today. And I think it's time for us to get to our final 10 questions. Unless anybody else in chat has any questions they'd like to ask our guest, I am all ears. But until then, Kenny, are you ready for our 10 questions?
I am ready.
So, these are the 10 questions that I have adopted from famous writer, actor, director James Lipton that he would often ask to his guests on his show inside the actor's studio. Now, these 10 questions have no right or wrong answers. They are simply answers according to the precepts and the feelings of your heart, meaning you just answer them however you want, and we can get a little more insight into the person behind the model. I encourage our viewers at home, or whatever you are, whether you're on the subway, at work, or in your bed because you're trying to go to sleep, but you are on your phone, and so you can't sleep. It's a perpetual cycle. I want to sleep, but I'm on my phone, but I can't sleep, so I gotta be on my phone. But but the phone's causing me to not be able to sleep. It's a Sisyphean thing. I encourage you guys at home to play along with us and answer the questions. So Kenny, why don't we ask our very first question? And that is, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word would probably be content, because I think a lot of people need to strive for that over, pleasure or happiness in a sense. I think being at ease with one's conditions in life should sort of be the goal, really.
I like that answer. The reason being is I was actually having a discussion about this with somebody last night, because I just started my new job, my new overnight job, and I was talking to the trainer, and she was like, what do you want to do? What is your ultimate goal? And all I said was, I want to have a quiet and peaceful life. And she's like, why is that? Could you wrote, hi, mortal. It's okay. The VOD will be uploaded later. Hope to see you tomorrow for the last episode of the VOD. But when I was talking with her, she's like, why? She's like, I'm like, because I don't know. I like to be content where I'm at in life. Wake up at 9 or wake up at 8, go to work at 9, stay there until 5, come home, enjoy my night, rinse, repeat. And that, for me, it works well, and I love it. And she's like, well, I love, I have a chaotic day. I have like chaotic days, and I like that. It's fine. I don't mind if my life is chaotic. And I'm like, but if every day of your life is chaotic, then your life is not chaotic. That's just your normal.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I'd rather have every day be peaceful and only have a bit of chaos pop up once in a while. Because it means I'm spending most of my time enjoying it, being happy where I'm at in life. But, I don't like the idea of a bunch of chaos and then finally having a brief respite only to get back into it. So, at least those are my thoughts. Quite a peaceful life.
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to strive for in my life as well.
What is your least favorite word?
Difficult question, but I'll just go with like the most typical standard answer. I do not like the word moist.
There it is. What about it do you not like?
It just feels gross. It just feels icky.
It is a gross word. It does not hit the right spots in the brain.
Yeah.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I would say journaling is probably the practice that I find to
Really?
be the most spiritually and emotionally insightful to sort of the practices.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you a lot of deeper insights into, yourself, the way you think, and I think it's something a lot of people should do, honestly.
Yeah, I agree. When I was away from home for the first time, it was one of the best ways I found myself connecting and adapting was writing down my thoughts at the very end of the day and just being like, this is what happened. This is how I feel about it. Hopefully tomorrow will be better.
Yeah.
Because it definitely gives you that outlet for concrete self-reflection. Because it's one thing if you think to yourself, but the human mind can't comprehend all those thoughts you have in that moment. And so writing down allows you to see those thoughts in person, and it becomes self-actualized.
Yeah, and I think it can give you better insight into sort of the patterns of thought as well. I think a lot of the times we don't really realize how sometimes our thinking can be a little bit dysfunctional until you actually look at the way you're thinking.
Yeah, it's very good. What turns you off creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
I would say I really don't like disloyalty. I think I value loyalty as a very big thing as a value to me.
Yeah, it's a good one. How can you be around people if they just aren't trustworthy?
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your favorite curse word?
Fuck. I would not say that's the
All
one.
right. And I say it like that because freaking that's just seems to be the general consensus of that's the go-to word.
It's so fun.
There's so much you can do with it. It can be used as a verb, a noun, an adjective. What have you.
Yeah.
What sound or noise do you love?
I would say I love the sound of rain. I think it's a very calming and very peaceful sound. That like I'll just listen to like audio of that and like a fireplace going, and it just like helps me ease to sleep.
I think Beneath the Mask from Persona mixed with like there's specifically a rain version that plays when it's raining outside in the game. I listen to that like all the time to help me fall asleep.
It's just give that a listen. I love Persona music.
Yeah, do you know what song I'm talking about?
I think so. I don't know off the top of my head.
So it's
I don't recognize the name.
So it's the one that goes do 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 do.
Oh yeah.
It's like
I do know that one.
It's the one that Kyo uses in the back of his videos.
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah, Rain's a good one. I freaking love Rain. I wish I could live somewhere where it rains 24/7, but alas, I don't want to go to Seattle. Sorry for those that live in Seattle. No offense to you guys. It's not you. It's just the town. What sound or noise do you hate?
I get unreasonably angry when my phone rings or if I hear a notification. I get unreasonably upset.
Really? What?
I have my phone on silent, like both my phones consistently on silent. I hate it so much.
Interesting.
I think I have the ringtones for like family and friends, but like everyone else, I like if I get a random call from a stranger, I get upset. What?
Fair enough.
I don't know.
The visible, like the vein popping in the forehead. You know, it's just like
Yeah.
it's essentially the audacity.
Yeah, it just like disrupts my day what I'm doing. I just don't like it.
You know, I can really understand that. Just like I guess my one of my least favorite things is when I'm like listening to good music and all of a sudden I hear my ringtone go off. I'm like, oh geez, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Oh goodness,
It's
something.
it really is.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
One thing I'm trying to learn recently is getting back into art, and I think that's probably one of the professions I would like to try if I had the time or willingness to do it. I think it'd probably be just being a professional artist.
Is there a specific kind of art that you'd like to do?
Well, obviously, given my model here, probably anime art would
heck
probably be the
yeah.
one I'd go for. Yeah.
Honestly, I'd love to try my hand at 3D modeling.
Oh, yeah, that's very interesting. I've watched a lot of videos on like Blender or such. That's very interesting.
What profession would you not like to do?
Oh, God, I would hate to go back into food service or like customer service, like in like a grocery store. I would hate to go back into. It's very draining.
See, that's what I just started yesterday as an overnight stalker, but thankfully I don't have to talk to anyone.
Yeah,
So
interacting with customers is not fun sometimes with that kind of stuff because I don't know. It's just not the most appealing circumstances.
yeah, hear me out. Furry artist makes gold worth of money. To be fair, I just saw a post on Twitter that was making pornography, I'll say it like that, is like that kind of art drastically improves how your work as an artist, and the reason being
Yeah.
because you get very good at learning how proper anatomy works.
Yep.
Hopefully you learn. So
Hopefully.
look, I told my artist, like who designed this set and who's designed like because this set was made back in September of last year, so we have new upgrades, we have plenty of new stuff coming for the season 2. He's changed he's grown a long way since then, and I told him, like, if you want to make more money, you know where the market is. You
Yep.
just can't accept yourself doing it. So our very last question is, if if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I wrote up part of my answer a little bit. I didn't finish it, but it was very difficult for me to answer this one. But I think probably my answer would be that I would like to hear him say that I did my best with the circumstances I was given. I think that would be the answer I'd give here.
I think it's a very common, but it's a very good one, because thankfully I haven't had anybody that's had a combative answer, which, because I know some people have reservations, they have feelings about the concept of God, and especially, like specific iterations in different faiths, but this is more of thankfully it's not directed at a specific religion, it's just imagine hearing a higher power tell you something. I think the best, the most common, but also I think the best answer anyone could ever hear is you did good.
Yeah, I think that's probably would be the most comforting thing I'd hear.
It's the best kind of validation you can get is you are enough and you did all you could.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, this has been a very good show. And I think this has been a very, like, considering what is going to happen tomorrow, this has been very nice to talk and listen to. Like,
thank you.
Honestly. I think it's time for me to ask my last, in my opinion, my second most important question. That is, Kenny, who should we raid?
Who is You know what? I know exactly. Grimmy VT is who you should raid.
I see. Well, if you could put their name in the chat, in the stream chat here for all to see, I'm going to talk to the chat for a moment before we raid out. So, guys,
There you go.
thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the VOD. Like, again, this show would not be possible without you guys. There's so many things that there's so many things that, thank you, that I'm always hoping to improve and do better on. But at the end of the day, the things that I don't like to, I hope never change, are my guest and you guys. So I hope you guys can join me tomorrow for a very last episode of the show. I want it to be the biggest one yet, because I want this last episode of season 1 to go out with a bang. You know, that way we all have so much fun. So if you can, spread the word, tell your friends, tell your family, you know, whoever, ask the random barista down the street, tell them to tune in. I'd love to have as many people for this. I want to make it a big event. And if you can't make it, that's okay. The VOD will always be available on my YouTube channel. So without further ado, why don't I actually get that going, because I'm kind of dumb. Let's see. VOD raid because my mods are busy. One of these days I'll have more dedicated mods, but until then, I don't mind doing all this on my own. Let's see. The top one is for our wonderful subscribers, and the bottom one is for our wonderful followers. So with that in mind, guys, my name is Val. This has been Kenny, or Keniisu VT, and this has been the VOD. That is our show, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Good night!